The week before my wedding, I discovered my fiancé was cheating with my best man. I didn't cancel. Instead, during my groom's speech, I thanked everyone, and then played a recording of them for all 150 guests to hear, before announcing the bar was open to celebrate my newfound freedom. I, 32M, stood at the altar 7 days ago, knowing exactly what I was about to do. The wedding went ahead as planned, every detail perfectly executed, every guest believing they were witnessing the happiest day of my life. They had no idea they were actually attending the most elaborate revenge I'd ever orchestrated. 3 weeks before the wedding, I came home early from a business trip. The flight had been delayed, then miraculously cleared for an earlier departure, putting me back in town a full day ahead of schedule. I didn't call ahead. Why would I? I was coming home to the woman I loved, to the apartment we'd shared for 2 years, to finalize the last details of our perfect wedding. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of an old building downtown. I climbed the stairs quietly, my carry-on bag feeling heavier with each step, exhaustion from the trip weighing me down. When I reached our door, I heard laughter from inside. Her laughter, and then another voice. Male. Familiar in a way that made my stomach drop before my brain could process why. I stood there for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. The key was already in my hand. I should have opened the door. I should have walked in. Instead, I pressed my ear against the wood and listened. They were talking about the wedding. About me. My best friend since college was telling my fiancé how difficult it was to stand beside me knowing what they'd been doing. She laughed and said something about it being exciting, about the risk making everything more intense. He agreed. Then the conversation shifted into sounds I'll never be able to forget. I left, walked back down those stairs, got in my car, and drove to a hotel across town. For 3 hours I sat in that generic room with its beige walls and corporate art, trying to understand what I'd just discovered. The rage came in waves, threatening to pull me under, but somewhere beneath it, a cold clarity began to form. By morning, I had a plan. I went back to the apartment while she was at work. Our home office had a decent recording setup because she sometimes did podcast interviews for her marketing job. I took 2 of the smallest microphones, the kind you could hide easily, and I took the portable recorder. Then I went through the apartment methodically, looking for the best places. I settled on the bedroom, hiding one microphone behind the headboard and another inside the decorative vase on her dresser. The recorder went in the closet, tucked behind shoe boxes she never touched. When she came home that evening, I was already there, cooking dinner like nothing had happened. She asked about my trip and I told her about the client meetings, the presentations, the hotel with the terrible coffee. She listened and smiled and kissed me, and I wondered how long she'd been this good at lying. That night, I activated the recording setup remotely from my phone while she slept beside me. The system was voice-activated. It would only record when it detected sound above a certain threshold. All I had to do was wait. 2 days later, I scheduled another business trip. Told her I had to fly out for an emergency client meeting. She seemed disappointed but understanding. I kissed her goodbye at the door and drove to a different hotel, this one only 20 minutes away. Then I waited, watching the recording app on my phone, seeing the green indicator light up every time the system captured audio. He came over that same evening. I knew he would. My supposed best friend, the guy I'd asked to stand beside me at my wedding, walked into my apartment within 3 hours of my departure. The recording captured everything. Their conversation was casual at first, talking about their day, complaining about work. Then it shifted. She mentioned how stressed I'd been about the wedding, how obsessed with getting every detail right. He said something about me always being like that, always needing control. They laughed together about my quirks, my habits, turning intimate knowledge of who I was into ammunition for their private jokes. What came after was worse. Not just because of what they did, but because of what they said while doing it. She told him she'd been having doubts about the marriage. He asked why she was going through with it then. Her answer was practical, cold. The wedding was already paid for, our families were excited, and I was stable, safe, a good provider. But he was exciting. He made her feel alive. I listened to the entire thing through my headphones in that hotel room, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. When it finally ended and they started talking about what to order for dinner, I stopped the playback. I had everything I needed. The next week passed in a strange haze. I went through all the wedding preparations like an actor playing a role. We had the rehearsal dinner, where both our families gathered and toasted to our future happiness. My father gave a speech about how proud he was, how he knew I'd found the right person. Her mother cried happy tears and hugged me, telling me she couldn't have asked for a better son-in-law. My best friend stood beside me the whole night, laughing and joking, slapping my back and talking about his best man speech. I smiled through all of it, nodded in the right places, played my part perfectly. The wedding day arrived with perfect weather, sunny but not too hot, a light breeze that made the outdoor venue ideal. 150 guests filled the chairs, women in colorful dresses and men in suits, everyone excited to witness our union. The flowers were exactly what she'd wanted, white roses and peonies everywhere. The string quartet played softly as guests arrived and found their seats. I stood at the altar in my tuxedo, my best friend beside me in his matching suit. He leaned over and quietly asked if I was nervous. I told him I'd never been more certain of anything in my life. He smiled and said that was good, that he was happy for me. I almost laughed. She walked down the aisle on her father's arm, looking beautiful in the dress she'd spent months choosing. The ceremony proceeded exactly as rehearsed. We exchanged vows that I'd written weeks ago, before I knew the truth, words about love and trust and forever. I said them clearly, meaning every syllable in a way she couldn't possibly understand. When the officiant pronounced us married, we kissed, and the guests erupted in applause. The reception was held in the adjacent garden, beneath white tents strung with lights. Dinner was served, champagne flowed, and people laughed and celebrated. My new wife looked radiant, moving from table to table, accepting congratulations and hugs. My best friend worked the room too, charming everyone with his easy personality, completely at ease. After dinner came the speeches. Her maid of honor went first, telling funny stories about their friendship, about how she knew we were perfect together from our first date. People laughed and raised their glasses. Then it was his turn. My best friend stood up, champagne glass in hand, and delivered a perfectly crafted speech. He talked about our friendship, about watching me grow into the man I'd become, about how happy he was to see me find love. He was articulate and funny and sincere, and I watched him perform this character assassination disguised as celebration with the same cold clarity I'd felt in that hotel room. When he finished, everyone applauded. He sat down, clearly pleased with himself. My new wife squeezed my hand under the table. The MC announced it was time for the groom's speech. I stood up, and the garden fell quiet. All 150 guests turned their attention to me, smiling, expecting another heartfelt tribute to love and commitment. I started traditionally. Thanked everyone for coming, for being part of our special day. Thanked both sets of parents for their love and support. Thanked the wedding party for all their help with preparations. People nodded along, comfortable with the familiar script. Then I shifted gears. I said I wanted to talk about trust, about how important it was in a marriage, about how we trust our partners to be faithful and we trust our friends to have our backs. The mood in the garden changed slightly, people uncertain where I was going with this. My new wife looked at me with a small smile, probably thinking this was leading into some romantic declaration. I pulled out my phone, told everyone I had something I wanted to share, a recording that I felt perfectly captured the relationship I'd been celebrating today. My best friend's face went pale. She started to stand up, but I'd already connected my phone to the venue's sound system. The recording started playing through the speakers placed throughout the garden. At first, people looked confused, trying to understand what they were hearing. Then recognition dawned. Her voice, his voice, the conversation about the wedding, about me, about their doubts and excitement and deception. The garden erupted, not in celebration this time, but in gasps and shocked exclamations. People looked at each other, at the bride, at the best man, trying to process what they were hearing. Some guests started to stand up. Others covered their mouths in horror. I let it play for exactly 2 minutes. Long enough to make everything crystal clear, but not so long that it became gratuitous. Then I stopped the recording and spoke into the microphone again. I announced that the marriage would obviously be annulled first thing Monday morning. Apologized to the guests for the deception, but explained that I'd needed everyone here to witness the truth. Needed her family to understand why their daughter wasn't the person they thought she was. Needed his friends to know what kind of man stood beside them. Then I said the bar was open, that all the alcohol had been paid for, and everyone should stay and drink and celebrate my newfound freedom. I thanked them again for coming, set down the microphone, and walked out of the garden. Behind me, chaos erupted. I could hear shouting, crying, the sound of chairs scraping as people jumped up. But I didn't look back. I walked through the venue, past the startled staff, out to the parking lot where I got into the car I'd arranged to have waiting. Update 1. The fallout started immediately. By the time I made it back to the hotel where I'd been secretly staying for the past week, my phone was exploding with calls and messages. I turned it off. I needed silence. Needed time to process what I'd just done. That first night alone was strange. I'd expected to feel triumphant, vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. Empty in a way that had nothing to do with losing her and everything to do with losing the future I'd imagined. Even knowing that future had been built on lies, the loss of it still hurt. I turned my phone back on the next morning. 347 messages. 62 missed calls. I scrolled through them methodically, deleting most without reading. A few stood out. My mother had called 17 times. Her messages progressed from confused to angry to worried. She wanted to know where I was, if I was safe. What had possessed me to do something so cruel in public? The last message was different. She said she'd spoken to my father, that they'd talked to some of the guests who'd stayed at the reception. She said she understood now. Asked me to call when I was ready. My brother's message was shorter. He said what I did took guts, that he was proud of me, and that I could stay with him if I needed a place. I made a note to call him later. Her messages started apologetic. She claimed it wasn't what it looked like, that the recording was out of context, that we needed to talk. By message 15, the tone had shifted to angry. I was cruel and manipulative. I'd humiliated her in front of everyone she loved. I'd destroyed her reputation for revenge. The cognitive dissonance was almost impressive. My former best friend only sent one message. It was long, rambling, full of justifications and excuses. He claimed they'd never meant for it to happen, that feelings just developed, that they'd tried to stop but couldn't. He said I'd gone too far, that I could have handled this privately instead of destroying both their lives publicly. I deleted it without finishing. The most surprising messages came from guests. Many expressed support. Her bridesmaids were split, some defending her, others saying they'd had suspicions but didn't know how to bring them up. His groomsmen were universally disgusted with him. Several guests apologized for not seeing the signs, as if they should have somehow known and warned me. 3 people asked if they could share my story online. I declined. This wasn't about internet points or viral revenge stories. This was about justice, about making sure everyone who needed to know the truth actually knew it. I spent that Sunday organizing my life. Called a lawyer about the annulment process. Started looking for a new apartment since our shared place held too many contaminated memories. Made a list of all the shared accounts and assets that would need to be divided. The practical steps helped ground me, gave me something concrete to focus on. Monday morning, I went to work. My boss had been at the wedding. He called me into his office first thing, closed the door, and asked if I was okay. I told him I was handling it. He nodded, said to take whatever time I needed, but that he understood if I wanted to work through it. I chose work. Sitting at home alone with my thoughts seemed worse than the distraction of normal tasks. Word had already spread through the office. People who hadn't been at the wedding had heard about it from those who were. I got sympathetic looks in the hallway, but most people had the grace not to ask questions. My coworker from the sales team stopped by my desk at lunch. She said her sister had been through something similar, that it got better with time. I thanked her and meant it. By Wednesday, I'd found an apartment. Small, modern, completely different from the place I'd shared with her. I hired movers for Saturday, planning to get everything out in one trip while she was at her parents' house. Her father had called me Tuesday night, alternating between apologizing and defending his daughter. I'd listened politely and then explained that while I appreciated his call, I needed space from their entire family. The legal process moved quickly. The marriage had lasted approximately 4 hours from ceremony to my revelation, making the annulment relatively straightforward. My lawyer said it would be finalized within 2 months, possibly sooner given the circumstances. I signed every paper without hesitation. That Friday, exactly 1 week after the wedding, I went back to our apartment for the first time since the ceremony. She wasn't there, having moved back with her parents after what the neighborhood had already dubbed the wedding reception incident. Walking into that space felt surreal. Everything looked the same, but it was all different now, every object tainted by what I knew. I packed methodically, took only what was undeniably mine. Didn't touch any of the wedding gifts, leaving them boxed and stacked in the living room for her to deal with. Found the recording equipment still hidden in the bedroom and packed that too. Evidence, just in case the annulment somehow got complicated. In the back of our closet, I found a shoebox I didn't recognize. Inside were printed photos. Him and her together, dating back almost 6 months. Photos from trips they'd taken, restaurants they'd visited, moments they'd shared while I was working late or traveling for business. They looked happy in those pictures. Genuinely happy in a way that made me wonder if what they had was actually real, while what she and I had was the affair. I left the shoebox on the kitchen counter with a note. Just 3 words. You forgot these. Update 2. Moving into the new apartment should have felt like a fresh start. Instead, it felt like admitting defeat. I'd imagined starting fresh in a new place with her, after the wedding, beginning our married life together. This hollow echo of that dream, doing it alone, made everything harder. My brother helped me unpack. He didn't ask many questions, just worked alongside me in comfortable silence, occasionally offering observations about where furniture should go or whether I needed to buy new kitchen supplies. His wife brought over dinner that first night, homemade lasagna and salad, and they stayed while I ate, providing company without demanding conversation. The apartment slowly took shape. I bought new furniture, wanting nothing that held memories of our shared space. Picked a different color scheme, rearranged the layout completely. By the end of week 2 in the new place, it actually started feeling like mine rather than just somewhere I was staying temporarily. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into projects, volunteering for extra assignments, staying late. My boss noticed but didn't comment, probably understanding that I needed the distraction. My performance actually improved, all that focused energy redirected into productive channels. The social fallout continued rippling outward. Mutual friends were forced to choose sides, and the division was revealing. People I'd thought were close friends ghosted me, apparently unable to handle the awkwardness or unwilling to condemn her and him. Others I'd barely known reached out with surprising support, sharing their own stories of betrayal and recovery. His life imploded faster than hers. He got fired from his job after someone sent the recording to his boss. I wasn't involved in that, though I can't say I was upset about it. His girlfriend, who I'd forgotten he'd been casually seeing, left him immediately. Last I heard through mutual acquaintances, he'd moved back to his hometown 3 states away, trying to rebuild somewhere people didn't know the story. She stayed local but struggled. The marketing firm where she worked didn't fire her, but several clients requested different account managers after hearing about the wedding incident. She moved from her parents' house to a small apartment downtown, posting cryptic messages on social media about growth and learning from mistakes. I'd blocked her on everything, but people kept sending me screenshots, wanting my reaction. I stopped looking. 3 weeks after the wedding, I got a call from her mother. She was crying, asking me to reconsider the annulment, saying her daughter had made a terrible mistake but truly loved me. I listened for 5 minutes before gently explaining that love didn't look like what her daughter had done, that no amount of apologies could rebuild the trust that had been destroyed. Her mother cried harder and hung up. The annulment was finalized on a Tuesday morning in early autumn. The judge reviewed the evidence, asked a few perfunctory questions, and signed the paperwork. Just like that, the marriage ended. I walked out of the courthouse feeling lighter than I had in months. That evening, I did something I'd been avoiding. I went through the wedding photos the photographer had delivered. Most were standard shots, formal portraits, and candid moments. But there were a few from right before my speech, capturing her face and his as they realized what was about to happen. The photographer had caught the exact moment of recognition, the shift from celebration to horror. I looked at those photos for a long time, studying them like artifacts from someone else's life. Then I deleted them all, cleared them from my computer, my phone, my cloud storage. Kept nothing except the original recording, locked away with my legal documents just in case I ever needed evidence. My parents invited me to dinner that weekend. We sat in their familiar dining room, eating my mother's pot roast, and talked about everything except the wedding. My father eventually brought it up, saying he wanted to make sure I was really okay. I told him the truth, that I was angry and hurt and betrayed, but also relieved, that staying in that relationship would have been worse than ending it, even if the ending had been dramatic. My mother asked if I regretted how I'd handled it, whether I wished I'd just called off the wedding privately instead of going through with the public revelation. I thought about it carefully before answering. Told her that part of me did wished I'd taken the high road. But another part of me needed everyone to know the truth, needed witnesses to validate what had been done to me. Maybe that was petty. Maybe it was justified. Probably it was both. They didn't judge me for it. My father said he might have done the same thing. My mother said she wished I'd told them beforehand so they could have supported me better. I explained that telling anyone would have risked the information getting back to her, ruining the confrontation I'd planned. They understood, even if they didn't fully agree with the approach. Driving home from their house that night, I realized something. The anger that had fueled me for weeks was fading. Not gone, probably never fully gone, but no longer the consuming fire it had been. In its place was something quieter, more sustainable. Determination to rebuild. Purpose in moving forward. I started dating again casually after 3 months. Nothing serious, just meeting people for coffee or dinner, remembering how to connect without the weight of betrayal hanging over everything. Most first dates didn't lead to second ones, but that was fine. I wasn't rushing anything. A woman I met through work, someone from a partner company, turned into something more promising. She knew about the wedding incident. Everyone in our professional circle did, but she didn't treat me like damaged goods or a curiosity. We took things slowly, building actual friendship before anything romantic developed. It felt healthy in a way my previous relationship never had, even before the cheating. 6 months after the wedding that wasn't, I ran into her at a coffee shop. She looked tired, older than the woman I'd almost married. We made awkward eye contact. She started to approach me, then stopped. I nodded once, acknowledging her presence, and turned back to my laptop. She left without ordering anything. That night, she sent an email. Long, rambling, full of apologies and explanations. She said she'd been in therapy, working through why she'd sabotaged our relationship. Said she understood now that she'd been scared of commitment, of the finality of marriage, and had destroyed everything rather than face those fears. She didn't ask for forgiveness or reconciliation, just said she wanted me to know she recognized the damage she'd caused. I read it twice, then filed it away without responding. Maybe that made me cold. Maybe it made me smart. Either way, it was the right choice for me. The 1-year anniversary of the wedding passed quietly. I spent it with friends at a bar, not discussing what day it was, just enjoying their company. Someone eventually mentioned it, asking if I was doing okay. I realized I genuinely was. The betrayal would always be part of my story, but it no longer defined my story. People ask sometimes if I regret the public nature of my revenge. The honest answer is complicated. I regret the pain it caused innocent people, the guests who got caught in the crossfire of my justified anger. I regret that her family suffered embarrassment they didn't deserve. But I don't regret exposing the truth. Don't regret refusing to protect people who'd betrayed me from the consequences of their choices. Would I do it again the same way? Probably not. With distance and perspective, I can see less destructive paths I could have taken. But I also understand why that version of me, raw and wounded and furious, made the choice he did. I forgive him for it, even if others don't. The best revenge turned out not to be the dramatic revelation at all. It was this: building a better life, finding genuine connection, learning to trust again while maintaining healthy boundaries, moving forward instead of staying trapped in bitterness. She reached out one more time, about 18 months after the wedding, asked if we could meet for closure. I declined politely, explained that I'd found my closure in moving on, that rehashing everything would only reopen wounds that had finally started healing. Sometimes I still think about that recording, about the conversation that changed everything. Part of me wishes I'd never heard it, that I could have stayed ignorant and maybe happy. But that's fantasy. The truth would have emerged eventually, maybe after marriage, maybe after kids, causing exponentially more damage. Better to know when I did, as painful as it was. The recording itself stayed locked away for 2 years, then I deleted it. Didn't need it anymore. Didn't want that poison taking up space in my life, even digitally. Let it go the same way I'd let go of the anger and hurt. 3 years out, I'm genuinely happy. Engaged again, to someone who earned my trust through consistent honesty and genuine care. We're planning a small wedding, just immediate family and close friends. No grand gestures, no elaborate revenge plots needed. Just 2 people choosing each other with clear eyes and open hearts. Sometimes people recognize me. Remember the story that briefly went viral despite my attempts to keep it private. They look at me with curiosity or pity or judgment. I've learned to let that go too. They don't know the full story, don't understand the context. Their opinions don't define my worth or my choices. The wedding that wasn't taught me what I actually value in relationships. Honesty above romance. Respect above passion. Trust built through actions, not just words. Those lessons cost me dearly, but they were worth learning. I still believe what I did was justified, even if the execution was imperfect. You don't get to betray someone systematically, plan to marry them while sleeping with their best friend, and expect that person to protect you from the truth. Actions have consequences. Sometimes those consequences are public and painful and permanent. But I also believe in moving forward, in letting go of revenge once it's served its purpose, in choosing growth over bitterness. The person I am now is stronger, wiser, more careful with his trust. That version of me exists because of what happened, not in spite of it. So here I am, 3 years later, genuinely grateful for the disaster that wedding became. Not grateful for the betrayal itself, but for the life it pushed me toward. A life built on truth instead of lies. On genuine connection instead of convenient fiction. On self-respect instead of desperate hope. The bar was open that night, celebrating my newfound freedom. 3 years later, I'm still celebrating it. Still grateful I walked away when I did, how I did, refusing to let betrayal define my future. The best revenge isn't the dramatic gesture. It's living well, loving honestly, and never settling for less than you deserve. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.